Okay, so we'll move on to stage 2. You've submitted the invention, we've triaged the invention, and we have a patent or an invention that we have decided it has commercialization potential. So the first thing, once you have IP strategy, the next step is to understand and define the value proposition, articulate what is the value proposition of this invention and the IP strategy that you have. And typically, you want to write up a summary of that value proposition. So we call those typically a non-confidential summary. A typical summary would talk about the background. Here's the unmet need. This is what the technology is, and this is the solution it provides to this unmet need. It has some features of the invention that highlight why this invention or solution is better, what is its advantages. It provides a quick status on IP. A patent application has been filed. A link to if there is a peer-reviewed publication. So this becomes your non-confidential summary, a tool that you're going to use to market, to contact companies. And you would formulate your commercialization strategy. And that includes, is this technology going to be the basis, best suited to be a basis of a startup? Or is this best we should market to existing companies and license that? And you would try to find your target companies based on the technology and that commercialization strategy. Part of that strategy is also understand, is marketing going to be most effective right now? Or is the technology being developed a little further because the investigator's lab is working on it and there'll be a better time to market it? But you have to understand it in terms of your patent timeline, the science that's going to happen, what's the development path within the lab and within the institution for that technology. So once you've formulated that kind of commercialization plan and have a summary that articulates what the value proposition of this technology is, you find target companies, you reach out. If there is interest, you may sign confidentiality agreements with these companies as the next step, so that you can have more robust conversations. Those conversations typically happen with the technology commercialization staff and the investigator and the company, depending on the set of questions. There's normally a fair bit of due diligence by the company as they try to understand how the technology would fit, what its value is. Often from the marketing effort, you get a lot of feedback besides the decision from the company that helps you further refine and understand and articulate what is the value proposition, or does your technology need further development or a change in strategy. Okay? So once you've had these discussions and you could find the right partner or continue to elicit more feedback from other companies. So once you have, if you're in the lucky place of having many partners, you select the right partner for that technology, and you move to stage 3, which is you enter into license negotiations with that partner. So what is a license agreement? A license agreement is when you transfer rights for commercialization in your intellectual property to this industry partner. So one of the first things you do is determine the scope of that license, the rights you're giving. Is it exclusive? Is it non-exclusive? Is it going to be for a particular disease area? So that's called field, license field. Or is it going to be, is this technology more for internal research use? And along the way, in all academic license agreements to industry partners, we typically retain the right for the academic institutions to continue to use that intellectual property for research and education purposes. The right is more for commercialization of the technology. A license agreement then also deals with what's the financial considerations for licensing the intellectual property back to the financial compensation back to the institution. It depends very much on the technology, the stage, the company partner, and typical license agreement in the aggregate will capture value in terms of upfront fees, annual payments, milestone payments. Milestone payments may be structured based on the technology, for example, upon first filing of the IND or first approval of the drug, etc. And then, of course, royalty on sales of products. Sometimes when it's startup companies, equity may be a component of the financial consideration. Also important to have diligence terms for developing the technology as contractual obligations in the agreement, so that you can keep the technology on track for development within the company, where the company is obligated via the contract to move it along a certain path at a certain time. And then there are legal terms in all these documents, because this is where legal terms range from requirements around if their product had problems, they would indemnify us if there was a class action lawsuit, etc. So there are a lot of other legal terms, including confidentiality, also not to use endorsement use of the institution's name, because we're definitely licensing the technology, but we're not endorsing the product. So that brings us to stage 4. We had an invention, we filed the patent application, we marketed it, we found the perfect partner, we had a license agreement with this industry partner, and we are, what do we do next? So we have the license, depending on the stage when we license it and the partner. For example, if it's a startup, often somebody from the technology transfer office would be an observer or a member of the board, and that helps shepherd the technology and the startup company. For other licenses, we would still monitor the diligence requirements and interact with the company to make sure that they are developing the technology with their development plan timelines. And there are times when we would renegotiate the license if needed in response to changing conditions. For example, the technology has some real challenges and hurdles. The company may come back and want to renegotiate some of those timelines. So we basically manage the license relationship, and if everything goes well, there's a product on the market, and that leads to royalty and license income back to the institution. And the technology transfer office manages the distribution of that license income in accordance with each institution's IP policy. Typically, the net license income is after any out-of-pocket costs for the institution are reimbursed, which equal patent costs that were not reimbursed by the licensee before the license income. That is then shared in accordance with IP policy. At partners, the IP policy is 25% goes to the inventor or inventors on that invention, 25% to the lead inventor's lab, 25% to the department, 25% to the institution. This varies among the different institutions, and but there is typically a sharing between these different segments within the institution.
Is it negotiable or not?
No, the IP sorry, the question was, is this negotiable? This is based per institution, per IP policy. It's not negotiable.